It's Super Bowl weekend, and while the big game is right around the corner, so are some intriguing rumors about the Chargers' offseason plan. Let me break down these wild trade rumors that just dropped. What's up, buddies? Welcome back. If you are new here, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We cover all AFC West news here on this channel. So here's the bombshell. Myles Garrett reportedly wants out of Cleveland. This comes not long after their GM emphatically stated that there's no chance they're trading him. Yet Garrett himself has expressed a desire to chase a championship, even if that means moving elsewhere. If Garrett is truly available, the Chargers absolutely need to be making calls to explore the possibility. Then boom, we get words that Cooper Kupp might be on the move too. Looking at the Chargers specifically, they need to be aggressive here. Garrett would be a game changer for their defense. And Kupp, being just across town makes this possibility really intriguing from a logistics standpoint. Listen, we're seeing something pretty incredible here. Two elite players, Myles Garrett and Cooper Kupp, potentially available. Both could transform a franchise overnight. This isn't just typical offseason chatter. These are legitimate game-changing possibilities. Now let's break down this Myles Garrett situation. Listen, when a player of his caliber says he wants out to compete for a Super Bowl, you pay attention. We're talking about someone who's been absolutely dominant in Cleveland. The debate between him and TJ Watt for best edge rusher in football, that's legit. Garrett's been a consistent force. That's really the perfect word for him. Game after game, season after season, he just disrupts everything. Here's what makes this situation interesting. Cleveland actually respects Garrett. This isn't your typical messy breakup. They'll likely work with him to find the right landing spot. But that narrows things down quite a bit. Think about it. He's not going to teams that missed the playoffs last year. That's just common sense. Then you've got to factor in which teams can actually afford to make this move, both in terms of trade capital and cap space, while also giving him that real shot at a ring. You know what's fascinating? The Chargers actually make that short list of potential destinations. When you're talking about a player like Garrett, just having him on your roster instantly boosts your Super Bowl chances. That's the kind of impact player we're dealing with. Myles Garrett to the Chargers makes a lot of sense when you break it down. Not many Super Bowl contenders have the financial flexibility the Chargers have right now. This is a guy who's looking at probably his last big contract or two. He needs that perfect mix of championship potential and proper compensation. From the Chargers' perspective, this is exactly the kind of move that fits their vision. Look at their track record. They've been obsessed with elite edge rushing for the past 5 to 6 years. The Khalil Mack trade was huge, completely out of character for this franchise. Then they hit a home run drafting Tuli Tuipulotu and still went out to get Bud Dupree. That tells you everything about how this new defense under Jim Harbaugh and Jesse Minter values edge rushers. The stats back this up. The Chargers had the #1 scoring defense last year, built on consistent, fresh pass rush rotation. They finished 6th in pressures and sacks. Not quite the top 3 I expected, but still impressive. Their defensive success in 2024 came from this emphasis on elite edge rushing. Now's the perfect time to evaluate what worked and double down on those strengths. Edge rushing clearly stands out as a position they'll want to keep investing in. Now, let's understand these roster moves shaping up. Joey Bosa's injury history makes him a likely trade candidate. It makes financial sense to move that contract and open up space. Khalil Mack's in a contract year, and while I expect the Chargers to work something out with him, Bosa moving creates an opening at edge rusher. This lines up perfectly with their defensive identity. Now, Myles Garrett, this guy's production is just absurd. We're talking over 100 career sacks, and check these numbers. 16, 14 sacks in his last 4 seasons. Add those consistent forced fumbles. 4, 3, 2, 4, 2. Remember that Chargers-Browns game last season? Garrett got what, 3 sacks practically back-to-back? That's the kind of game wrecker he is. At 29, heading into his age 30 season, Garrett's got plenty left in the tank. Looking at Mac's late career production with the Chargers, you could easily see Garrett playing at an elite level until 34, 35. He's still in his prime and shows no signs of slowing down. Look at what this could mean for the Chargers. Replacing Bosa's injury concerns with Garrett's Iron Man consistency. That's a game-changing upgrade. But let's break down if they can actually pull this off. Financially, the Chargers are sitting pretty. We're looking at minimum $60 million in effective cap space if they move Bosa, potentially hitting $100 million before factoring in needs like Rashawn Slater's contract and other signings. They'll be one of the most cap-healthy teams for the next few seasons. Now, what about Garrett's contract? Currently, it's pretty manageable. $20 million in 2025, $20 million in 2026. The tricky part is that void year in 2027 with $40 million. But here's the thing. If Garrett's serious about joining a contender, there's room to restructure. When top players want to compete for rings, they often work with teams on the financial. Now let's talk draft capital. That's the real cost here. The Chargers nailed their first draft under GM Joe Hortiz. Look at the talent they got. Lad McConkey, Joe Alt, plus guys like Junior Colson, Cam Hart, and Tarheeb Still. Even late-round picks like Kamani Vidal show potential. Now, this success in the draft makes fans nervous about giving up draft picks. When you're hitting on picks like this, you want to keep that momentum going into 2025. But here's my take. Yes, draft picks are valuable, especially when you're drafting well. But let's put this in perspective. Myles Garrett is a proven elite talent. He's not a maybe, he's a definite game changer. Then the financial piece looks doable. We're talking roughly $28 million per year through 2028. That's market value for an elite edge rusher. The structure could work with the Chargers' cap situation, keeping both sides happy for at least 4 seasons. Looking at this year's draft class realistically, it's average at best, not nearly as strong as 2024. Sure, you've got top talents like Ashton Genie and Travis Hunter, but the depth isn't there. The Chargers picking at 22 might miss out on targets like Tyler Warren or Colston Loveland. This draft situation actually makes trading for Garrett more appealing. Instead of gambling on who falls to 22, you could flip that pick for a proven superstar. The minimum cost here would be this year's first rounder, likely more. Let's compare this to the Khalil Mack situation back in 2018. The circumstances are eerily similar. Elite pass rusher, wanting more defensive help, contract issues. The Bears-Raiders trade gives us a blueprint. The Bears-Raiders-Mack trade is a cautionary tale. Even with Mack playing great football, Chicago couldn't build a championship roster after giving up so much draft capital. That package, 2 firsts, a third, and a sixth, getting back a second and conditional fifth, was a king's ransom that limited their flexibility. Now, Adam Schefter's using this as a comparison for what Garrett might cost. Here's my concern. While I'm comfortable giving up this year's first-round pick for Garrett, especially in this weaker draft class, giving up multiple first plus more picks would handcuff the Chargers. Joe Hortiz needs draft capital to keep building this roster. 2 years without first-round picks is risky, even for a superstar like Garrett at age 29. Could another team offer that massive package? Maybe, but there's a better comparison that should give Chargers fans hope: how they acquired Mack themselves. The Chargers' situation is unique. They've transformed from a 5-win team to an 11-win playoff team. Harbaugh's presence is attracting stars, and I guarantee Garrett sees LA as a serious landing spot. This could mean a trade package closer to what the Chargers gave up for Mack. Not the Bears' massive deal, but it won't be as cheap as just a second-rounder like the Mack deal. Garrett's situation is different. We're likely looking at this year's first-round pick plus some additional compensation, but not the 2 firsts plus more that Chicago gave up. Here's why it makes sense. This is exactly the kind of move championship teams make. If Hortiz can work out a deal using this year's first and some additional picks without mortgaging the future, you do it. Imagine Garrett opposite Tuipulotu, possibly with Mack still in the mix. That's a championship-caliber pass rush. Now, looking at Cooper Kupp's situation, yes, he's right across town and the Chargers need receiver help, but there are major concerns. Over the last 3 seasons, he's missed 18 games, averaging just 11 games per season. His stats in that span: 2,259 yards, 17 touchdowns, averaging 68 yards and half a touchdown per game. Availability is the big issue. Averaging 700 yards and 5.5 touchdowns per season isn't what the Chargers need in a WR1. This feels like a band-aid solution when the team needs major surgery at the position. It's not comparable to potential moves for T. Higgins, DK Metcalf, or Chris Godwin. Those would be true difference makers. On Cooper Kupp, at 31, the contract details need a close look. Pre-June trade puts him at $29 million in 2025 and $27 million in 2026. But with the Rams willing to absorb salary, those numbers drop to $12.5 million and $20 million, respectively. If we can get closer to that $7 million over the cap evaluation, the conversation changes. Yet I'd still take Keenan Allen over Kupp. Those 18 missed games in 3 seasons raise red flags. For trade compensation, we're likely looking at a late-round pick, since Kupp's requesting the move. My final take on these rumors: for Myles Garrett, I'd push hard with a 2025 first-round pick plus extras, but wouldn't go as far as 2 firsts. As for Cooper Kupp, it only makes sense if the Rams eat significant salary and the price stays at a late-round pick. But if we have shots at T. Higgins, DK Metcalf, or bringing back Keenan Allen, those are better options than Kupp right now. Both moves could help the Chargers, but Garrett's the one worth pursuing aggressively. So what do you think, guys? Share your thoughts in the comment section.